Jurgen Stock, the former Secretary General of Interpol, thank you so much for being with us on CNN Business Arabic. So I want to start by asking you, under your leadership, Interpol expanded cybercrime operations and warned that criminals exploit every crisis, from COVID to geopolitical tensions. What are the biggest lessons law enforcement agencies should take from the last decade of cybercrime?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. The world is still facing an unprecedented threat to our private devices on the one side of the spectrum and our critical infrastructure on the other side. Indeed, it's a kind of cybercrime epidemic that we are facing, and this is not new. It's already a phenomenon that has been starting some 10 or perhaps 15 years ago. It's a global threat in many parts of the world. It's really a threat to national security. And for a response, the global law enforcement community, it's of utmost importance that, first of all, we share the necessary information to understand the threat, to understand what might come next, on the one hand, to coordinate our response, and on the other hand, helping building the capacity that is required to be a strong part of the global defense side. So training, cooperation with the private sector, because this is where normally a lot of competence and skills are sitting. And that would make our global response against cyber criminals stronger. It's a complex problem. Of course, you have cyber criminals who try to make money. Think about ransomware, for instance, where I think ransom has been paid in a volume 2022 and 2023 of almost $1 billion. So it's a big criminal industry. On the other hand, we know that the cyber environment, cyberspace, is already also been used for, let's say, any kind of political motivation. Important is that we are sharing, again, I repeat that, our information across law enforcement agencies, that we organize information sharing between the intelligence community and law enforcement, and importantly also with the private sector, because again, this is where a lot of information sits. Private sector, for instance, IT security partners, they are monitoring the global threat landscape. So we need to improve in sharing this kind of information on a solid legal basis. And of course, also respecting privacy, data protection. This is necessary, but absolutely crucial to improve our global response against cyber criminals or whatever motivation is behind a cyber attack.
You've highlighted cooperation very heavily in our chat, but when there's a world filled with conflicts, tensions, sanctions, how realistic is that model of cooperation when it comes to cybersecurity?
You are right. The geopolitical situation, tensions, conflicts are not making it easier for the global community to work together on the one side. On the other hand, of course, what we are discussing in the context of conflict, of technological disruption, for criminals, these are opportunities to increase their attacks against our systems. So it's increasing the threat level. And there is no other way than building the necessary partnerships to address these threats. No company, no law enforcement agency, no country, no region, no group of like-minded states can address this global threat in isolation. There is no other way than cooperating, and if I may say, the most recent UN Convention on Cybercrime is an indication that it's possible to bring the global community together, but it requires leadership at every levels. But again, there is no other way than addressing that threat.
Jurgen, during your time, you've defended and reformed the Red Notice system. But in high-profile cases like Carlos Ghosn, we saw the limits of that notice. Interpol issued the notice, but it was up to Lebanon whether to act. How do you explain these limits to the public so they understand what a red notice can and cannot achieve?
During my term in office in Interpol, which ended in November last year, of course, we have been investing a lot with the support of Interpol's member countries and even the support of NGOs, which have been providing advice to Interpol to strengthen the red notice mechanism, which is an extremely powerful tool to ensure that there are no safe havens for criminals. But it's based, of course, on a proper legal framework, and it's based on trust. So only if you have a proper legal framework, and if you execute this legal framework to make sure that every country is applying Interpol's rules, whatever the national system is, If they use Interpol, they have to respect Interpol's rules. And that is something that we have been enforcing strongly within the Interpol community. And again, that leads to thousands of arrests every single year to make sure that cyber criminals, for instance, murderers, those who are abusing children, are being located and are being brought to justice. So an extremely powerful tool. And it's important for Interpol to continue whenever there is a kind of gap, to identify the gap, to close the gap, and to make sure that this instrument is based on Interpol's rules and regulation, respecting privacy, respecting the Declaration of Human Rights. And that all together makes the Red Notice an extremely powerful instrument globally to bring criminals behind bars.
But do you think countries should be held accountable for not following the rules and regulations set by Interpol?
I mean, Interpol's rules and regulations, the rules on the processing of data, for instance, our privacy rules, our rules that regard also the Commission for the Control of Interpol Files, are rules given by Interpol's member countries for Interpol's member countries. And again, every member country, whatever the national system is, whenever they use Interpol, whenever they channel information through Interpol, they have to respect Interpol's rules. Again, that is a matter of trust. It's a matter of integrity in the system. And this is for utmost importance for Interpol to strictly enforce these rules.
Thank you so much, Jürgen, for your time with us today.
Thank you for having me.